So Rachel Aprill Phillips, she's an entrepreneur, a global marketer, she's a content specialist, and she coaches companies and individuals to help them get the most out of their business and also out of their lives and out of themselves. And now this podcast is all about living our own lives and designing our lives and stepping up and taking power to take ownership of our lives rather than just allowing lives to happen to us. And I've spoken to Buddhist monks, I've spoken to meditation experts, mindfulness practitioners, I've spoken to fear gurus, all kinds of different people who all help us to overcome those obstacles that we put in our own way to living our lives and fulfilling our potential. I really wanted to speak to Rachel because she's been on this journey herself. She is self-made. She's really taken ownership of her life, and now she's helping other people and businesses to do the same. So I hope you get as much value out of this conversation as I did, and hopefully you'll stick through it to the end because it was a really worthwhile conversation for me, and I think there's a lot of wisdom to be gained from listening to Rachel speak. Hope you enjoy this one. So Rachel, thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast.
Thank you, Chris, for having me.
This podcast, it's all about kind of getting started in taking ownership of our own lives. So sometimes that dips into kind of spiritual stuff. So I've spoken to Buddhist meditation teachers. I've spoken to people who've written books on philosophy and things like this. But then sometimes it gets quite practical as well. So I've spoken to entrepreneurs and that kind of thing. And I wanted to kind of speak to you because you coach people in starting up their own businesses and you have a lot of practical advice about building audiences, communities, driving revenue and stuff like that. But the one thing for me always seems to be the hardest thing seems to be getting started and overcoming those kind of mental roadblocks that kind of say someone like me couldn't ever do something like that. Whereas I know that that's completely untrue if people just put their mind to it. But how do we tackle that? What do you think is the first hurdle to starting your own thing, do you think?
That's a great question. To be honest with you, I went through that same situation as well. I was a mother for 8 years. I had the qualifications in teaching,
Okay.
but obviously I had 4 children and I wanted to wait till my last one went into nursery. So after he went into nursery full time, I went back into teaching and I got a really good job after not teaching for a while. Went to an interview and there was quite a lot of people and I managed to get the job, which was quite weird. And so I remember sitting in the staff room waiting for the security car to come and take me out, saying you're in the wrong place, and I had that kind of mindset for 3 months into the job, waiting for someone to say, sorry, we got it wrong. You're the wrong person for the job. Off you go.
Imposter syndrome, basically.
Yeah, imposter syndrome. And I was sitting in the staff room thinking someone's going to come in. But I remembered, even though I had that feeling, I remembered that there was another feeling at the side of it was this exciting feeling, this confident feeling knowing I could do it. But the problem was because I hadn't done it for such a long time.
Yeah.
And what we have to understand is that imposter syndrome is not going to go away. It's something that we have due to upbringing, words that were spoken to us, bad circumstances that happen in our lives. It's all about retraining the mind. And obviously we know the mind is a muscle. So it takes time. You just have to just get started. I know it sounds kind of like basic, but truly it is about getting started. And the more you just continue on that dream or that path that you want to go to, the easier it gets. Fear doesn't disappear. We're never going to lose. Fear's not going to just go out of our lives, but fear becomes more manageable and fear will silence its voice the more you continue to go on that path that you want to go into.
So do you think it's something that you have to kind of embrace? Because I know some of my biggest areas of growth where I've grown kind of professionally and personally have always begun with a feeling of like, oh my God, this is bigger than me. What the hell am I doing? This is far too huge. I spent some time living abroad for a while, and when I first arrived in this foreign country with my suitcase and nowhere to live, I was like, oh, what the hell have I done? And then it turned out to be an amazing opportunity. And similarly, when I've taken jobs before where I've really been out of my comfort zone. Is that something we have to keep practicing, do you think?
Yeah, I'm at my comfort zone every single day. I think think if you're challenging yourself and you want to get better, you know, let's be honest, it's a yin and yang of life. We all have weaknesses and we all have strengths. What we tend to do sometimes is focus too much on the weaknesses, you know.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to learn to do is focus on my strengths and just let the weaknesses take care of itself, you know, because, you know, we're not perfect human beings. We have flaws, you know. But if we kind of just spend more time looking at the areas that we enjoy, the area that makes us happy, the areas that we're passionate about, then what you do is that you find that you're living a more holistic life with the weaknesses. The weaknesses will get better in the sense that we can do education, we can better ourselves, we can take classes. So you can improve on your weakness, but we can't let the weakness be the sign at the front. We can't step forward with our weaknesses. We've got to step forward with our strengths, you know. And so it's not something that we're taught in school. We normally tend to go through the weaknesses and say, I'm bad, I'm not good, I can't do this, I can't, because that's what we focus on. And then we miss out on all this amazing strengths that we have. I mean, like you said, you went into a new country, but then you realize that you had the capability of living in that country and living it through to the time that you had to do it. So that's showing that you had strength, you had determination to get what you had to get done. But it's not a natural thing that we do. We tend to focus on our weaknesses. And I used to do that for such a long time. And, you know, and I've seen a difference of now living from my strength. And then, you know, when I can invest into my weakness, I invest into my weakness, but I don't focus on it. So I do think that you have to just get started, push yourself forward, and then you will get better as you go along. You know, habits doesn't make perfection. Habits make improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. You talk about, you know, we are focusing on all our weaknesses and all our strengths and all this kind of what might go wrong instead of what might go right.
Yeah.
But we do have these strengths, but sometimes they're kind of buried underneath all this insecurity and all this kind of this attention in the wrong direction. What acts as the kind of kick up the backside to kind of get us to say, hang on, I am going to take a chance here? I mean, do we have to wait for things to get really, really bad where our life becomes so uncomfortable we need to take action? Or,
Yes.
you know, what will be?
Yes, that tends to happen. We wait till something dramatic happens, and then you get a wake up call. You know, sadly enough, that's what happens. You know, I would like to say, you know, all my journey would have been, you know, if it was just I wanted to go through, you know, personal development. I mean, now in my journey, because I've had failures in the past, I know what to look for as soon as I start seeing myself. You know, going into, you know, procrastination, going into the area when I'm like putting myself down. I can identify it much more easier now, obviously, as I'm getting older. Obviously, when I was younger, I couldn't identify it. And then you had to go through crises and, you know, something drastic. Because I went through depression about 12 years ago, and I was in depression for about 2 years.
Yeah.
And something bad happened in my life that got me to that wake up call, like, you know, something has to change.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of us, you know, when we go through that, and I think it's a natural part of human nature. We don't want to admit it, that, you know what, it's those kind of things that makes us stop and look at life. But it's part of human nature that we have to get the little kick up the bum. Mother Nature saying, time to move on, time to do something different. Because we all get comfortable. We all get comfortable. And comfortability, actually, we don't like. You know, we get comfortable, but we don't like it. You know, so yes, sometimes it needs something. I'm not saying it should be all the time, but from what I've seen in my life, it came to a point when something drastic happened. Then I had to take a wake up call and move forward.
It's interesting because I've spoken to a lot of people who, and there seems to be this common theme, maybe not for everybody, but there are some people who've reached this kind of level of spiritual wisdom, you know, and they've become these great thinkers, and they've kind of given their lives over to being a monk or whatever it is, or kind of changing a direction. You know, I've spoken to people who made a lot of money in the city, but then were deeply unhappy, and then decided to go off and do something else, start their own brewery or this kind of thing. And there always seems to be this kind of hitting a kind of really low point, and then you kind of noticeably see that you do have the power to change things, and then it's almost like a kind of, well, I have this power, let's see how far I can push it. And you're building and building. But I mean, there are people who will never hit rock bottom, and they will kind of quite happily go along just having a kind of mediocre, comfortable and pretty miserable life, but sometimes never kind of hit that kind of low state. how do
Mm.
you kind of encourage people? You know, you can't force someone to um, have a kind of crisis or a kind
Mm.
of awakening like that. How can you encourage people to kind of just want to be a little bit better every day and improve their lives?
I think we all brands, we're all an example. And if we don't know it or not, our lives, we're living out our life and someone's going to be watching. It could be your child, it could be your neighbor, it could be a friend, it could be your wife, your husband. People are going to be watching your life. And for me, I think is that we can't force someone to start the journey that we're on. I mean, I know for myself, my husband and I have gone through different journeys through our life. When I was going through one personal development, he was going through another.
Yeah,
And I think the best thing to do is just live your life, and then let's just hope that our lives are an example in some shape or form. I'm not into forcing or pushing someone because, people have gone through different upbringings, different circumstances. People are different. So I can only do my best to be a good representative of
yeah,
what it means to have a life more abundantly. And then through that, hopefully they will see that and be attracted to that.
yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, I've uh, noticed that before I hit the rock bottom in my own personal circumstances,
Mm,
I was going through this kind of sense that life was something that just happened to me, and I didn't really have
mm,
much control over what was going on. But
mm,
afterwards,
mm.
I saw that we have the power to change things and change ourselves and to drive improvements and
Mm,
um, try things and experiment and that kind of stuff. Um,
yes.
you talked in the past about kind of being authentic, and you've talked about your setbacks and your losses and your depression and that kind of thing.
Mm, mm,
How important is it to be authentic? Can you go out one day and say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to, I don't know, sell used cars or something? Or
mm.
is it really vital that you do something that's connected with who you are and what your kind of spirit is?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if you're on a journey of personal awareness and on a journey of just getting to know who you are and how you fit in the world, then obviously, like you, Chris, you've gone on your journey because it was
Yeah,
something that was burning inside of you. You wanted to start that journey. Not everyone wants to start the journey of authenticity. For me, I went through quite an interesting one. I grew up in church, and then I
okay.
met my husband in church. Then I got married in church, and I had children in church. And then I realized that boat wasn't working for me anymore. When I wanted to do more with my life, the church boat wasn't taking me any further. So I left that whole scene, and I lost a lot of friends, lost a lot of family, all that kind of thing. And I had to restart my whole life again. And that was one of the reasons why I went through depression as well, because I
Yeah,
was running away from my past and trying to start a new life in a completely new location, area, all that kind of stuff. So for me, I think it's important that you be authentic, because if you don't go on that journey of knowing yourself and finding out what you like, what makes you tick, what's your passion, why you're here on this planet, then you're going to there's going to be a time in your life that you are going to get into a deep, like we talked about, crisis. Why do we, start these journeys? Because we go through those places where we hit rock bottom. And hitting rock bottom is part of us getting to the place to the door where we open that door to be authentic. Some of us hit rock bottom and then we start the journey and then we go to that place where the universe is challenging us to be authentic and we turn the other way, and we say, no, we don't want to do that. We find where we are. I hit rock bottom. I'll pick myself and we just do just enough to just get us by. But some of us say, you know what, I want to go a bit further. I don't want the life that I had before.
yeah,
I'm going to go on that journey of because sometimes a lot of people don't know what it means to be authentic. We hear that word so many times. But for me, I went on a journey of kind of knowing my character, knowing my personality, knowing more about myself. And I did a lot of Myers-Briggs tests and what jobs I should be doing. And, I did a lot on my personality, did my star signs, I did everything just to find out who I am, what I'm supposed to be doing. And you know what? It's worked really well for me. Those things work. I'm not saying that
yeah,
everyone can do it, it should do it, but it worked for me. I literally went on a university degree on myself, and then I made sure I came back with a certificate so I can go out and live my best life, So I think it's important because you can live life happily and you can live life unhappy. I've done the unhappy. I'm
yeah.
doing 8 years of happy and it makes a difference.
It's funny. I mean, you talk about the church, and we are, from the moment we're born into this kind of organization that is society,
Mm,
and whether that's kind of with the church, whether it's with school, whether it's with
mm,
who you end up working for. There's this kind of framework that we are born into, But the thing is, it's somebody else's framework. It's kind of,
Mm.
this is what you do. You go to school, you go to university, you get married, you have children, you buy a house, pensions, then you retire if you're lucky at the age of 70. But this is all
Mm.
decided by other people. So the whole time we're going through life, we're kind of thinking, what should I be doing? How do I keep the people at church happy? How do I keep my parents happy? How do I keep
Mm.
the teachers at school happy? And
Mm.
so you're kind of shifting yourself and molding yourself to fit in with other people's agendas.
That's
So
right.
it's really hard. I mean, when you said you went on this journey of, you went to study yourself and find out who you were, that must have been
Mm.
quite frightening. Was there a moment where you thought, what are people going to think when I come out of this cocoon and I'm there at this butterfly who's been a
Mm.
kind of caterpillar my whole life, and now I'm ready to spread my wings?
Mm.
I was
It
terrified.
actually, no, totally. That's a great question. I actually, what it was, I met my husband at a very young age,
Yeah,
and he was the one into the religion sector, and so because of him, I actually went there, even though I was a bit more aware, I wasn't into it then because I loved him. I mean, I was 17, so I was a young girl. We've been married 24 years, together 26. So, and we haven't been apart from each other. So it's been like I've always done things for him, for the other person. And I think my light bulb moment was, what, I've done my life for someone else. I need to start doing my life for myself. I've always been a confident person, never afraid of people, all those kind of things. But when you get married, you take on traits of the other person. You
yeah,
you become them, kind of like, like when they say you get a pet dog, and all of a
yeah,
sudden your dog starts looking at you, and that's what happened. So yes, I was afraid, but I knew I had to do it because I wanted to find the old Rachael. I knew the old Rachael was there somewhere,
yeah,
but I knew I became this other person to suit my partner, to make him happy, and then I started my journey. I thought, you know what, let me give it a go. I'm going to step out and see if I start my journey, will he start his journey with me as well? And at the beginning, he didn't. So I kind of started my journey by myself. And I was very afraid, I was thinking, well, maybe we won't be together, have all these thoughts in your head, because coming out of the family that you've been with since you were 17 and leaving at 30 to say you're going to start something by yourself, it's a big deal, because a lot of people have reasons why you're doing it. They'll tell you that you're doing it because you want something that it's not the truth. And it was hard, but I knew I had to do it because like I said, this was making me depressed. I was going through depression. I wasn't able to eat. I wasn't able to take care of my children. And so luckily I didn't go to rock bottom. But I was close. So I don't. And people ask me, how did you get out of that? What did you do to come out of that? And I think for me, it was that I knew I was depressed. I knew I was going down. I think sometimes if you get to that place where you've gone to the other side, that that you don't even know that you're living a different life, then I think you're gonna have to get serious help. But I was at the place where I was like, I knew I wasn't eating, I knew I wasn't, washing, I knew I was sleeping, and I started realizing, gosh, if I go any further, I'm not gonna come out. So I just took one step at a time, and my thinking was the one I changed first. This self doubt, this
yeah,
self beating myself up, because I used to do that such a lot. Because again, I just left an environment where there were friends and family. I had to start over again. I felt bad about myself. So it took a lot of the process. I watched a lot of motivational speakers. I bought a lot of books, listened to a lot of audios. I remember watching The Greatest Secret on YouTube. That's the first time I met Earl Nightingale,
yeah.
and he was talking about what do you want? And I was like, what do I want? Do I have a choice? And what do I want? And I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Was Earl Nightingale the one who wrote, or was that Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich?
No,
Uh,
that's Napoleon Hill.
yeah. So
Yeah.
which book did Earl Nightingale write?
He didn't write a book. He wrote, I think he might have written some books, but he wrote a really amazing video that was done in I think it was 1960s, when it was black and white. And he talked
Yeah.
about, called The Stranger's Secret. You can find it on YouTube. It's about 2 hours long.
Okay.
And he talked about just asking yourself the question, what do you want? What do you want out of life? Like you just said, Chris, you've lived our life for other people. You didn't realize that we had the control of our own life. We're doing it because we've come into a society that's already pre-planned for us. And he just really breaks it down on, why it's important to know what you want and then
Yeah.
know how you're going to get there. I mean, that was a light bulb for me,
I mean,
you
that's
know.
a huge question, because a lot of the times we have a rough idea. I'd like a lot of money. I'd like a big house, but those are side effects of getting what you want. And
Yeah,
that question, I mean, if you know what you want, you've got something to work towards then. I mean,
that's right.
when you took your first step on this plan to create your life afresh, did you know what you wanted? Did you have a clear idea in your head of what you
I
wanted to do?
did, I did. So what for me, I wanted to be, I wanted to find a way that I could help people. You know, I'm very good at, because again, I looked at my personality types, I looked about my traits. You know, there's great books out there that a lot of people can tap into. I'm going to try to remember it before the end of the show, maybe give
Yeah,
it to you after. So, you know, you can, there was one book I read, Now Know Your Strengths, and it
okay.
was by a gentleman that goes into corporations and teaches companies to pick the right staff for work rather
Yeah,
than based on their personality, based on, you know, how they work, and then you can put them in the right positions rather than putting the wrong person in the wrong place. It's a really great book. It's been going on for years, and he goes into big corporations and changes them around by telling them, now know your strengths. And so in that book, it talks about what jobs you should be doing. It gives you your personality, and it bases it on the Myers-Briggs test,
yeah,
and then shows you, you know, how you can make a difference in the world with your gift and your talent. And so that book really changed my life. So I read that along as well as watching the videos and personal development. And then I knew straight away, I know I'm a teacher. I know I'm a coach. That's what I want to do. Now, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew that
yeah.
was my gift. And so, like I said, I went into teaching to do that. And when I was doing my teaching, because I've read those books, I started developing the students. And I had after school clubs. And then after school started with 5 children. Then, you know, within 6 months, it went to 28. And then it was getting really big. And I was thinking, gosh, I was teaching them break dancing after
Cool.
school, teaching, doing art.
Yeah,
And the school noticed that. And then they called me in, increased my pay, you know,
nice.
and
Yeah,
asked me to like do a lot more stuff. So I started realizing I was good at that. So I thought, you know, let me see if I can do this part-time while I'm becoming a teacher. So I started entering the internet world, didn't know what I was doing. And I read a really great article on Evening Standard about a gentleman who changed his life around, and he was about to lose his home, and he started an eBay business, and he, you know, was able to not foreclose on his home. So I did that, and I thought, well, I can start eBay business. I don't need a lot of capital to start that. So I had young children, and my children love DVDs. So I had hundreds of DVDs at home,
yeah.
and I thought I need to get rid of them anyway. So I started putting that on sale on Amazon and eBay. And I remember getting my first sale, thinking, oh my gosh, this really works, you know. And so what I was doing was just documenting what I was doing online with those examples of those home businesses, and that's how it went from there. And then because I was doing that, then the coaching came in along the way. Then my blog, which I was started 14 years ago, changed into Rachael Academy that I do now.
Fantastic. And so you're helping people kind of go through the journey that you've gone through in a way,
Yeah.
find what they, get specific about what they want to do, and take those first steps to.
Well, you know what? I don't call myself a coach because my husband was like, you should call yourself a coach. I've only recently started calling myself a coach because we talk about this whole thing of, you know, not knowing much about
Yeah,
yourself. Even though I've done the journey. But what I realized I was coaching anyway, because I work with individuals, I work with medium-sized businesses, and I'm working with companies, and I help them, you know, if it's an individual to launch the business, if there's an e-commerce platform, help them to, you know, get a business plan, know the idea, know your why, what you want,
yeah.
and then we help them launch it into like marketing, social media, blogs, all that kind of stuff, and then we help them connect with JVs or other partners that they can grow their business with. But then through that journey, I was coaching. I do one-to-one. I coach, you know, like we motivate you, encourage. Because starting a business is a lot of people want to do it, but then when they realize what goes into it, it's the mental. Most of it is mental rearranging of our mind and confidence about ourselves. So I've only recently just started doing that coaching properly about
Yeah.
6 months ago, and it's completely changed my business. It's changed myself as well, and I just took the step and said, yeah, okay, I'm going to add coaching into it, and it's been working really well.
I want to come back to a couple of things you talked about, if that's okay, before
Yeah.
carrying on with that.
Yeah.
you were talking about watching kind of motivational videos, reading books, that kind of thing, because you had all this stuff going on in your head telling you why you couldn't do it and why it was,
Mm,
too big of a leap and too big of a risk. Was
mm,
there a moment when you kind of felt it click and actually, I don't have to listen to these voices anymore?
mm.
I do have the strength, or was it more of a gradual progression?
Mm. I think once I got my first client, to be
Yeah,
honest with you, because I was making it to fake it till I make it. I was doing that a
yeah,
lot, So, because I went online and when I went online first, I was in a huge amount of debt. We were both in debt, and I was thinking, gosh, if I go online, they're going to find me out. It was one of a panic thing. But I knew I had to start somewhere and change my reality and move forward. And so when I got my first client and they were willing to pay me money for something I wasn't sure I was good at,
yeah.
that was the first, oh my gosh, things are changing. This works. And then, yeah, so that was the light bulb moment for me. Like, you know what, I can do this.
And I mean, was it someone you knew already? Was it someone who contacted you out of the blue? Was it how did it come about?
Yeah, so it was someone that contacted me out of the blue. So what I was doing was I was recording what was working for me through, finding a product, pricing the product, and then selling it on the platforms that I was doing. And
Yeah.
so what I decided to do was create a blog showcasing that. So I would take, video it or I'll write about it, talk about it, and I would post it on this blog. But
You were
someone must have
giving
been reading.
you were giving away all of your secrets,
Yes, I
basically.
was, I was, I was.
Yeah,
But to be honest with you, I was doing it just so I can keep track of myself, to
yeah,
have a accountability because I wasn't doing it all the time. So I thought if I start journaling it, then I would be, more accountable to someone
yeah,
that I was following through on what I was doing. So I didn't publish it straight away. I was just writing it down and it was in private, but it was just more like an online diary to just make sure that I was following through on what I said I was going to do. Then one day I decided, oh, let's just publish it now because I had about 4 months of writing down. I published it. And I think a couple of weeks later, someone reached out and said, oh my gosh, it was great content. Could you help me, do the same thing? How much do you charge? So I was like,
yeah.
how much do I charge? So I have to run back, try and work it out. And, da, 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 da. And that's how it started.
And when you came back with your price, they didn't run away or didn't sort of say to you, "Oh my God,
No,
be
I
that much?"
think I priced really low because they
Yeah,
said yes straight away. So
fantastic. And you were probably thinking, "Oh my God, I should have like doubled it or something like that."
no, not really. Actually, I was just glad to just get it done because I was working part time as a teacher. So to be
Yeah,
honest with you, it wasn't the money. I was just happy that someone saw value in what I was doing. Because that's actually what makes me really excited. Seeing behind the scenes, seeing someone go further ahead
yeah,
that you had a part to play in. I have some clients that I can't really tell that I'm writing for them. I copyright for them, but just to see them going ahead using my content,
yeah.
speaking my work, is exhilarating. It's really exciting.
Another thing you spoke about was finding your why. And I know Simon Sinek talks about this a lot.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who it was, but there's a very famous quote attributed to Friedrich Nietzsche, and it's any man who has a why to live for doesn't need to worry about the how or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, and I've kind of thought about this, my why, and I have a lot of whys. I have my daughter that I need to provide for. I have my pride and my self-respect. All these kind of things. But I've never found the why to be a very motivating thing, and
Mm.
makes me think I'm not getting the concept of getting your why together. So would you be able to help me kind of understand what your why is and how you can use that to kind of drive you forward and to take those risks?
So you're saying that you know your why, which you said it was your daughter and your pride, but
Yeah,
you
my,
so
my self-esteem. And
yeah. So you're saying, but those whys are not still enough, or you're saying it's not a motivating for you to move forward?
well, sometimes it's like there'll be the why, and I know it's like
Mm,
I want to make a success of myself. I want to provide for my family. I want to. One of my biggest problems has always been money. So whenever I've been broke or in debt, it's really affected my self-esteem. And
mm,
now that I'm not, I feel much more confident about life and that kind of thing. But even
mm,
when I know I'm doing this for these reasons, sometimes just the work feels like a real slog, and I'd rather not be
mm.
doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's
Right,
like, oh, this is
right,
too much like hard work. I just forget.
right.
How do you use that why to really kind of engage your kind of spirit
mm,
to power through
mm,
the difficult
mm,
times.
mm. I mean, that's a sign that probably that you are need to do something different, or you need to add something to your business, because Marza talks about the hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I remember
And so,
studying that in school in sociology.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's actually important, the hierarchy of needs, because sometimes what you have at number one might be should be at number three, and
Right.
what should be at number three might be at number one. So you might need to go and revisit that and have a look and see, okay, I might be placing this as my hierarchy of needs, but deep down it's not actually my hierarchy of needs. It might be something completely different, because that's what kind of subconsciously moves us forward in finding our why, you
Yeah.
know. So you have to like literally basically sit down and get a pen and paper and go revisit what motivates you, what inspires you, what makes you tick. And then, because Marza was talking about your hierarchy of needs in the sense of this is your blueprint. This is actually what you use as your foundation to step forward, And when I did mine, I realized my hierarchy of needs, I was lying to myself.
Yeah.
It was completely different, like, for example, we all grew up with the feeling of money is bad,
Yeah.
for example. And so going into the religion world, I was told to think a certain way about money. So when I revisit my hierarchy of needs, I realized money was important to me because I'm an A-type personality. I'm business orientated. Even though I'm a woman, my husband shows traits of a female traits. I show traits of man traits.
Yeah.
And so we have to go and work through all those kind of things. And then when I realized my hierarchy of needs, I needed to kind of switch them around. Then my why became more clearer.
That's really interesting because when we studied the hierarchy of needs, we always kind of put it was all about food and then shelter and then warmth and things like this, very practical things. It was
Mm-hmm.
we never talked about it from a kind of personal level. But this really ties into what you were saying earlier, and I'm a life coach as well. I've done life coach training, and I'm sort of just starting to get into it. I've got a few volunteers that I'm working with, but one of the things that they taught us in our training was finding out our values and
Yeah.
aligning our story with what our values are. So most of the time when we're miserable, and this aligns perfectly with what you're saying now, it's we're not the work we're doing is not aligned with who we are and what our values are, and
Mm.
in a way we're not being authentic because
Mm.
we're doing these things, and it's just really like hard work, and it's pretty
Mm.
pretty at the end of the week you're exhausted and you're miserable and just like, oh
Mm.
god, already worrying
Mm.
about Monday morning.
Mm. Mm.
And that makes perfect sense. I mean, but it's hard, isn't it? I mean, you've got children.
Mm.
How do you balance that up? It's like I have a responsibility to these children, but and I want to do this thing that is aligned with who I am, but it's a bit of a risk. It's frightening. I mean, what if it doesn't work
Mm.
out? How do we know how far to, how big a risk to take in order to
Mm.
align with
Mm.
our own needs?
Yeah. I mean, I think you should just, it's easier said than done. Change is very hard, very, very, very hard. My oldest is 21, so my youngest is 16, so they're at the stage where they're grown now.
Yeah,
And for me, because I've given all those years to them growing up, now I completely don't care about what they want from me. I'm just
yeah,
focusing on myself now. And I'm being selfish, to be honest with you. But I think at the end of the day, they're going to get the best of me if
yeah.
I authentic to myself. I'll be a better mother, a better friend, you know. And so it works all round. So I think it's maybe when you got a younger child, so and you obviously had. Is this your first child and the only one?
Yeah, so we've only got one, and she's 2 years old now. So we're going through the terrible twos at the moment. So she's
Yeah,
a bit of a handful and very vocal, but
yeah,
she's absolutely gorgeous, and my
yeah.
world revolves around her at the moment.
I've seen your pictures. They are lovely. She's gorgeous.
Thank you.
She's cute. Yeah, you know what? It's the thing is that it is scary, but if you don't take the step now,
Yeah,
you'll never do it. You don't want to look back and regret and say, "Wish I could have." You know what I mean? Rather than I did it. And there's nothing wrong with making a mistake. It's better to make a mistake on this side of you starting the journey than
yeah,
when you're 60 trying to start it then. It's better to do it now. Today, the best time to plant a tree was set 30 years ago. The second best time is
yeah.
now. So just do it. Just go for it. And if you make a mistake, so what? At least okay, that's not what I need to do. Pick yourself back up and then move again. We hear stories of all history of all these famous people, The guy that's invented the light bulbs, he tried thousands of times. Then
Yeah.
we all like, that's amazing, but 1,000 times,
Yeah.
he failed
Absolutely.
1,000 times, but he kept going. The inventions of the aeroplane, all these kind of things, it all was through failure to get to a place that we enjoy the benefit now.
It's interesting. I mean, imagine if it was Thomas Edison. I think it was
Yeah,
something like 10,000 times, wasn't it? But imagine if he'd given up
long, long.
after 9,000 times. Just like, I've done this 9,000 times now. It's not working. Forget it. Just I
Mm.
give up. That would have
We
been
give up after like 2 or 3 times, and that's it. We
exactly.
don't do it again.
And there was another thing, an interesting thing you said then, and this has been mentioned a couple of times. I've spoken to an entrepreneur called Leanne Perot,
Hmm.
and she said something which has stayed with me, and I use this quote all the time because it's really quite powerful for me. But she said the best thing you can bring to any relationship is a healthy, happy you.
Mm.
And and that can be a work relationship, it could be an intimate relationship, it could be a relationship with your kids, or even with yourself. A
Mm.
healthy, happy you is a foundation for giving your best, rather than this kind of constant sacrifice in order to get ahead. I've worked in jobs where you have to work till midnight, and you just turn up and you're exhausted emotionally and mentally, and you end up
Mm.
hating doing what you're doing.
Mm.
And there was also, I spoke to a woman called Natalie Kogan, and she is the head of an organization called Happier. And
Mm.
she was in a high powered job. She was earning a lot of money. I think she was working all the hours. And she was coming home and she was putting dinner on the table for her kids. And she was sort of saying, is this not enough? But she said, every time I put the food on the table, it was accompanied by a side order of stress and anxiety and unhappiness. And even though you're providing and you're getting the money in the bank, or you're ticking off these goals,
Mm.
if you're not happy and looking after yourself first,
Mm.
you can't provide for others. You can't create that kind of good, strong energy, if you like, for the people who rely on you. I
Mm.
suppose this also ties in with your why. It's you can't sacrifice yourself and pour from an empty cup, I suppose.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
yeah. How selfish how do we know when to stop being selfish, and how far can we? How do we say I need
Mm.
to do this for me in order to be able to help other people? And how far, when do we need to rein that in and say, hang on, actually
Yeah.
maybe I'm being a bit greedy now?
Yeah. I think I mean, if you're going on that journey, you subconsciously you would know,
Yeah.
because I mean, we're not idiots. We all know if we are like being selfish and we're being greedy, and we know when we are not. I think we need to be confident with our emotions, and be
Yeah.
confident that we have to have emotional intelligence. We need to know our emotions, and I think that's what a lot of people don't. They know it, but they're afraid to express it. They're afraid to be their true self and say, this
Yeah.
is actually how I'm feeling. Because again, society tells us, you know, uh, put other people first, don't be greedy, don't be selfish, all this kind of stuff. They're all bad names, words to a feeling that's actually a normal feeling for, a human being. If you don't have a roof over our head, if you don't eat, if you don't, those are basic needs. But our emotions and our feelings and human beings go beyond that. There's more deeper, we deeper people, and I think we know when we are going to the part of where it's not healthy for
Yeah.
us. I think the truth is about emotional intelligence and being honest about how we feel. A lot of people are not honest about what they want and how they feel. So I think the more we are more emotional intelligence about ourselves, the better we'll become. And a lot of people don't even know what happy looks like.
Yeah.
They might be happy what they see on TV, might be happy what their parents had, might be happy what their neighbors have. You need to know what your happy looks like. So when you have it, when you arrive at it, you don't push it to become greedy and selfish.
I mean, do you have a kind of a practice of gratitude that you do so that you can remain happy and content with where you are and what you've got, so you're not
Yeah,
kind of constantly dissatisfied and that kind of thing?
yeah. I do gratitude every single day. I've got a list of 25 things I'm happy for and thankful for. I'll say them, and then if I want to, every so often, if I want to add more to it, and I do. Gratitude for me has really been a catalyst for my life change as well, from me coming out of depression, from me having opportunities and doors open for me, because there's someone else somewhere in another country, even in the first world country, going through worse than you are going through right now. I
Yeah.
think if we just had that concept. I have a client who's got brittle bones disease, and even with that, I mean, he's a TED speaker. He
Yeah.
travels the world talking, and you can't look at that and be just not happy and grateful for what you have, you know. So, you know, and I know sometimes some people find it's a difficult practice to do, especially if you haven't done it before.
Yeah.
But just stop and look that, you know, just even look at the I say for me, because I used to say my life was insignificant life I was living. I still could find something that I was grateful for, you know.
It's funny, because the first time I kind of practiced gratitude, I was having to get up at 3:30 in the morning. I was delivering groceries for one of the big online supermarkets.
Mhm.
I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning. It was only a couple of years ago now, 3 years ago or something like that. And I'd think I've got to be grateful this morning. I've been reading about gratitude and how powerful it is. I've got to be grateful. But
Mm.
it's 3:30 in the morning. I'm doing this job where I have to, drive over to the depot and deliver ungrateful people's groceries. And I would sort of, for a few days I was doing this. What is this gratitude stuff all about? And I would go downstairs and I'd make my cup of coffee and I'd be like, oh, it's a nice cup of coffee. And then one day I was like, well, there's something to be grateful for. And then the more I kind of started to kind of work on, like, well, my coffee's nice, there's a beautiful sunrise going on. The more I kind of managed to shift my perspective from all the things that were going wrong for me.
Mm.
So actually, I've got this opportunity. I'm having a lovely cup of coffee in the morning. Actually, life's not so bad after all, even if, I don't have the career and I don't have the money and I don't have the sports car parked outside. I've got a beautiful wife at home. I've got a job. I'm
Mm.
very happy, and that actually made a shift in my real world. Once my perspective shifted, I started to
Mm.
become much more aware of the things that were going right, and that in
Mm.
turn shifted my approach to life, which
Mm.
shifted my results. So I started to see actual real benefits from having
Mm.
an attitude of gratitude, if you like.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's amazing. I mean, just
it
shifting
is.
your mindset like that can be, I
Yeah,
mean, you must have recognized this yourself when you started changing what was going on up here and seeing things happening around you start to fall
yeah,
into place.
definitely. I think as well, this is something I believe. I mean, again, I'm not a religious person, but I do believe that we are spirits having a physical experience, you know.
Yeah.
We're here and we can create our own world, you know. And I remember when I was going through my journey, they said, you know, all the bad things that's happening in your life you created. I was like,
Yeah.
mm-mm. I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Like all the views, all the, you know, no, I didn't create it. But then, you know, after some time I had to stop. It's not I created it, but I'm continuing to create it by the way I'm thinking, right? So that person that abused me, of course I didn't allow them to abuse me, but me keep replaying that in my mind, saying that stopping me from moving forward is me creating my bad life that I'm living right now. So for me, I had to, you know, it was like life or death to start that journey of gratitude. And I'm not the kind of person that will wake up, you know, sit and meditate. You know, my husband, he would go
Yeah.
on a journey of meditation. He would sit down and does all this thing, breathing. I mean, he's into that. He's a psychologist and a counselor. That's what he does. Me, on the other hand, I'm more of a practical person. So I'll be
Yeah.
doing my work, and I'll be in my mind thankful for something, or thankful I didn't swear at that client because they were like irritating me or something. That, you know, I've worked with people when they, like, you know, you try and get them to change. You're trying to, and you've been, one client I had for 4 years and they hadn't done one thing, and I was just like, you know. So I'm grateful that I didn't go crazy. So you be thankful for things, you know. So you don't have to be like a monk and climb the mountains and sit down. Gratitude you can do just in your everyday life. You know, it's a
Yeah.
simple thing to do. You don't have to be you know, in a state of mind, because we're spirits having a physical experience. You can tap into it straight away. You
Yeah.
know, I think when you think that you have to, you know, sit down, you have to find a space, you have to have a quiet place, then people don't do it. But when you realize that you can literally do it, like I'm talking to you right now, could be saying,
Yeah.
I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to talk to Chris, you know, that's gratitude. So but it changes your vibe, it changes your mood, you know. And
Yeah.
wherever our mood is, we follow. So if you're down, if you're depressed, your body language, your mindset follows that mood. If you're happy, if you're buoyant,
Yeah.
if you're, you know, excited, your body language and your attitude directs to that mood. So our mood is like our first point of contact. So we have to step off with a good attitude, because
Yeah.
that's how we're going to start the day.
I often think like the energy that you put into life gets reflected
Mm,
back at you. So if you're in a terrible mood all the time, you've got your head down, you're stomping about, and you're barging through, and you're letting the door slam on the person behind you, and you're getting into arguments and things like that, then your life is going to reflect that negative energy back. People are going to argue back, people are going to get annoyed with you, you're going to bump into things because you're not looking where you're going.
I
But,
agree. Yeah.
but if you're going around with a kind of positive attitude, you're smiling at people, you're holding the door for people,
Mm,
your reality is actually going to be much more positive. You're going to get much more kind of warm energy coming back towards you. You're going to see more
mm,
opportunities, things like this.
mm,
But,
mm,
I mean, it is a hard balance. I mean, I've heard people get into this practice of when things go wrong, they've trained themselves to say, good, I've learned a lesson here, and this hasn't worked. Good. It's like the Thomas Edison and his light bulbs. It's like, I've not
mm,
failed 10,000 times. I've learned 10,000 ways that didn't work, and
mm,
now I've got one way that did work. But
mm.
it's a practice. It's like going to the gym, isn't it? It's hard. You've got to really put the work in.
Yeah, yeah. But the results, I think, if you know what you will get for what you do, because
Yeah,
I mean, there's no way you can put work into something you're not going to get something out of it. If people realize what you get on the other side,
yeah,
then really it's like a university of life. It's because not everyone's going to because sometimes people think there's not enough to go around, but not everyone's the same. Like, this
yeah,
society is created for people to follow, to be yes men and women, and some of us just we kind of come out of that factory,
yeah,
but not everyone's going to come out of the factory. Of course I want everyone to come out of the factory, but everyone's going to go at a different pace and different time. So it is hard, but the benefit you get from coming out the factory and be authentic and finding yourself is so much. You can enjoy this life so much more better,
yeah,
because life is not easy. Life is very, very hard. But once you know your why, once you know where you're going on this path called life, it makes it so much more enjoyable.
yeah. When you have a plan and you have an action, you feel like you have
Yeah,
a sense of purpose. I guess you're moving
yeah,
forwards towards something.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I feel like I've taken up lots of your time already this morning, but if there was kind of one piece of advice you could give to someone who feels like life is just something that happens to them, and no matter what they seem to do, nothing ever goes their way and they feel powerless. Like, I used to think that there'd been a day at school where they told everyone how life worked. But that day I just happened to be off sick. So now for the rest of my life, I'm kind of stuck thinking, why is this not working out? What am I doing wrong? If you had one
Mm,
piece of advice for someone like that, what
mm.
would it be to get started?
That's a great question. Gosh. Mm. There's so many things I could say, but I would say that, you know what, you're enough. You are enough. You got to start there, because the whole journey is us starting with loving ourselves. You know, and some of us find it difficult to love ourselves, but you are enough. You're worthy. You're awesome. You're unique. There's no one on this planet like you. Yet they might look like you. They might have certain, but no one's going to have the same fingerprint. We all know that. So that means you are unique, and you got to start from there. And you're not a mistake, because sometimes I used to think, gosh, I wish I could have a conversation with my mum, say, don't marry my dad, no, stop, but it never happened. So I used to think I was a mistake. You're not a mistake. You're here
Yeah,
for a reason. And you know what? You have to begin that journey of finding why that is. What is because it's not a manual that our parents get to give us when we graduate. There
yeah,
you go, manual of life. Off you go and get on. It's something that we have to do ourselves. And you know what? I've raised my children on the path as soon as they were like 12. Sat them down and said, okay, this is it. I'm your mum, and your parents will love you. By the end of the day, you are going to have to find your own path in life. I'm going to be here to support you, but I can't tell you what to do. You have to tell me what you want, and I'll help facilitate that. What do you want to become, blah, blah, blah. But I've done that. My mum did that with me, which is weird enough. She sat us down and we were like, asked us questions. And even though I kind of did that at a young age, you kind of lose track. But I think the understanding of knowing that, that you are lovely and worth loving, love your own self, that gave me a more confidence and foundation to continue the journey of discovering life and moving on.
I suppose that's really a good point, actually. And I'd never thought about it. I wish there was a guidebook for life. But the thing is, if someone gave me a guidebook for life, it wouldn't be for my life, it would be for their life. So,
That's right.
we have to find our own,
That's
we've
right.
got to find out who we are, we've got to find out what we're interested in, and find our authentic selves, all this kind of stuff. And I suppose that is the job, isn't it? That's what we've got to, that's the work
We
we've
all want to
got to
take the scenic route. We don't want to take the
do. Yeah.
we want the easy way to life. So we want the scenic route, but the scenic route don't work sometimes. You
Yeah.
have to have a map, and you have to plan and plot to get
And
to where you want to go.
I guess the scenic route is actually someone else's route. It's the route of getting a job, retiring at 70 if you're lucky, all that kind of stuff. So if you really want to kind of take life by the horns and live it, you've got to, find your own path. That's brilliant. All right. So if people want to find out more about you, the work you're doing, your writing, or your other activities, what's the best place for them to seek you out?
Yeah, just go to my website, rachelacademy.com.
Okay.
And we've got a training platform. It's got free resources. I write every day. So, I've been doing that for the 14 years.
Wow.
So you have a lot of content on there. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the places that you can find me on YouTube. And so I'm out there.
Well, I'm already friends with you on Instagram, but I'm going to now go and kind of basically connect with you everywhere else now, so I can try and soak up some of this knowledge and this wisdom and stuff. That'd be brilliant. And
Thank you.
yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. I know you've probably got a lot more better things to do than chat for an hour or so, but I really appreciate your time. So thank you ever so much for that.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So there you go. That was me speaking with Rachael Aprill Phillips. You can find out more about the work she does at www.rachelacademy.com. She's also on all the socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Follow her Facebook page, LinkedIn, connect with her wherever you can, and try and soak up some of that wisdom that is so useful in terms of living our lives and fulfilling our potential. Because as we discussed in the conversation, life really reflects back the energy that you put into it. And it doesn't matter if you fail 1,000 times, you just keep getting up, keep putting the energy in, and keep being authentically you. Do it for yourself, find out what your values are, and use those to create a target and move towards it. All right, hope you enjoyed that. www.rachelacademy.com. Find out more about my other podcasts at chrisbrock.uk, and there's stuff about my books on there. I do a lot of writing, that sort of thing, and you can find it all there. And hopefully look forward to seeing you on the next podcast, where I will be talking to Giles Paley Phillips. All right, thanks a lot. Bye for now.